In today's video, I have some Moody Cottage style Halloween DIY decor to share with you. If this is your first time here, welcome to my channel Creatively Expressive. My name is Amy, and on my channel I share DIYs, thrift flips, budget decor, and all things creative. And if you're new here, I would love it if you would become a part of my creative family by clicking that subscribe button below my video. Now without any further ado, let's get started. For project number 1, I will be making these cute witch hat topiaries. For this project, I will be using 2 small terracotta pots, 2 foam cones, 2 sticks or wooden dowels, and a foam poster board. The first thing I did was use a salsa bowl to trace 2 circles onto the foam board. Then I am going to use an X-Acto knife to cut those circles out. Now I'm going to center a foam cone on the circle and trace around it. Then I am going to flip the circle over and mark the center of the opposite side. Now I'm going to run a line of hot glue around the inside edge of the circle that I marked and then glue the cone onto it. Then I'm going to flip this hat shape upside down and cut a hole in the center with my X-Acto knife. I was trying to think of how I can add a bent top to the top of the hat, and I thought of these foam rollers that they sell at Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut the foam a little less than half the length, and then I'm going to cut the center wire, but I'm going to leave it about an inch or so longer than the foam. And I use that extra wire to insert the cut roller into the top of the hat. As you can see, I already have one of the topiaries made, and I'm just trying to make sure that the second one matches the first. I'm going to remove that second plastic cap from the roller, and then I will use a low temperature hot glue gun to glue the foam roller to the top of the hat. The foam roller is a bit skinnier than the top of the cone, so I'm going to fill in that space with some aluminum foil. I'm just going to wrap a few pieces of the foil around the cone and then hot glue them to the cone. And be sure to be careful when using the hot glue with the foil because it gets hot. So you can see here that I'm just using the handle of a paintbrush to push the foil down that has the fresh glue on it before touching it with my hands. Now to make sure that the stick in the bottom of the hat is nice and secure, I'm just going to add some hot glue into the hole before replacing the stick. Now that I have a nice hat shape, I am going to start covering it with some moss. The moss comes in one big clump that is held together with what looks like sewing thread. So to make it easier to get small amounts out at a time out of the bag, I am just going to go at it first with my scissors and cut it into small pieces. Now I'm going to start adding hot glue to the foam form and then covering it with the moss. I am using a low temperature hot glue gun, but I would add the glue over the green area in smaller sections than I did here because even though it was on the low setting, I managed to melt the green roller a bit. I think that happened because I added too much glue at one time because I didn't have that problem with the first one. The way I like to stick moss to hot glue is to grab way more moss than I need to add more of a barrier between my hands and the glue. Then once the glue cools, I can pull off the excess moss. I am also going to give the moss a bit of a haircut after the glue has cooled and I have knocked off the excess moss. And I am just starting from the top of the hat and working my way down to the bottom. When I get to the brim, I will be sure to add glue and the moss around the edge as well so that none of the white is showing. And then finally I will cover the bottom underside of the hat. Now I'm going to fill the terracotta pot with some floral foam. Then I will stick my topiary into the center of the foam. Now I need to cover the foam in the pot with some more of the moss. And then for just one more little added accent, I am going to wrap some jute twine around the base of the hat. I wrapped the jute around the hat 3 times and I tacked it down with little dots of hot glue. And that's it for this project. The little pumpkin topiaries were made from pumpkin topiary picks that I found at Dollar Tree and added to tiny pots that I got from Walmart. For project number 2, I'm going to be making over this skull snack bowl that I got from the Dollar Tree for $3. I thought it was cute, but I wanted to make it less flashy and more cottage style. So first I'm going to paint the entire thing with matte black spray paint. Now I'm going to be adding some Spanish copper rub and buff to give it a more copper or bronze look. I'm going to squeeze a small amount onto a paper plate, and then I use a soft round brush to buff it onto the skull. And I painted the bowl black first so that I don't need to cover every inch of the bowl with the copper wax. Also, leaving some of the black showing gives it shadows and adds more dimension to the bowl. And I'm just going in all different directions with my brush when I'm working that copper color onto the bowl. And just look how cool the hands look when you add that copper color to it. To get underneath the hands with the copper, I will just use a smaller brush. Now, I don't know about you, but I love the look of patina on bronze and copper pieces. The little bits of blue just look so pretty to me. I've seen the bronze paint and patina spray by Dixie Belle, and I thought it was cool, but I didn't want to spend the money. So I found a tutorial on YouTube using clear wax and acrylic paint, so I decided to try that. What you do is mix some clear finishing wax with some blue paint. And folk art actually has a paint color called patina, which is perfect. And I didn't do any measuring, I just used my judgment on amounts. Now I'm going to use my paintbrush and dab some of that blue wax onto the skull bowl. Then I will use a dry paper towel to dab some of it off. And I will be sure to add a link to the tutorial that I used for this patina effect in the description box of this video if you want to check it out. I'm trying to get the wax down into the dips and the grooves on the skull, and then when I dab off the excess with a paper towel, I'm trying to be sure to leave more of the wax down in those dips and grooves. Now to work even more blue into the skull, I decided to try dabbing it on with the sea sponge. And I think that worked really well with giving me that patina look. Once I was happy with the look of the skull, I set it aside and let it dry, and then this project was complete. This was originally sold as a candy bowl, but since I painted it, I would be sure to only fill it with wrapped candies. Or you could fill it with something else if you want. It doesn't have to be a candy bowl. Let me know what you guys would fill it with. For project number 3, I'm going to be making over this LED skull candle that I got from Dollar Tree for $5. My husband wanted me to make it look more like a realistic skull, so that is what I'm going to attempt to do. I am going to spray paint it with this color Sand Dollar by Rust-Oleum, but first I am going to tape off the clear flame and the battery cover with painter's tape. Now I'm taking the color Chestnut by Apple Barrel and mixing it with some water. Then I am going to use a sea sponge to dab that color all over the skull. I don't know if this step was really necessary though, and you'll see why in a bit. When the chestnut color is dry, I'm going to water down the color Cashew by Waverly, and I'm going to start sponging that color onto the skull. Then while I'm still working with the cashew color, I'm going to water down the color Burnt Umber so that I can use the two colors at the same time. I started adding the Burnt Umber color to the skull right below the melted wax area, and then I started blending it out with the sea sponge. Then I add more of the cashew color so that the lighter color is still wet, and then I go over it with some burnt umber to blend the two colors together. And I am adding the burnt umber color to the areas where a shadow would normally be. So to me that would be below the wax and in the sunken areas of the skull. Also I am using two sponges, one for the lighter color and one for the darker color. I add the lighter color first, and then I add the darker color in the areas where I want the shadows, and then I come back in with my lighter sponge to blend that darker color out just a bit. And if you get too much of the darker color on there, it can easily be lightened up with the lighter color. Now I'm using my paintbrush to add more of that darker color where I want it. And you can see I'm just playing around with the colors. In some spots I'll brush it on, and in some spots I'll sponge it on. And then in some spots, I'll blend it out with a sponge, and in some spots, I'll just dab off the excess with a dry paper towel. And when I turn the skull right here, you can really see how much dimension and detail I'm getting by blending that burnt umber color with the cashew color. Now I'm letting that burnt umber color just run over the teeth to make them really stand out. Then I'll pat off the excess with a paper towel. And I will just continue playing with this, adding shadow where I want it. And you can see that most of that chestnut color that I used first is hidden, and that's why I said I don't really think I needed that step. But I just fly by the seat of my pants when I'm crafting, so sometimes I do things that don't end up being necessary. But experimenting and trial and error is part of the fun, I think. Once I am done painting and shading the skull, I'm going to use black chalk paint to paint the candle on the skull. First, I am going to use a fine detailed paintbrush to outline the edges of the wax. Then I'll go in with a larger brush and paint the rest of the candle. Now for the final step, I'm going to coat the entire thing with a couple of coats of matte clear top coat, and even though this spray says it's matte, it gives the candle a bit of a satin finish. And I actually like this because I think it gives the wax a bit of a more realistic look. And now this project is complete. FYI though, my LED light ended up being defective and it wouldn't turn on. We tried replacing the batteries, but it still wouldn't work. Fortunately though, my husband was able to replace the light, and here it is with the new light in it. Project number 4 is a Trash to Treasure Halloween DIY. I have these 3 outdoor light up pumpkins, and 2 of them have a lot of sun damage. Instead of throwing them away though, I decided to give them a makeover. So I decided to try to make them look like these terracotta pumpkins from Pottery Barn. The biggest pumpkin had the most damage with some cracks in it. So the first thing I am going to do is fill up those cracks with some caulk. Then when the caulk is dry, I'm going to sand it a bit to smooth it out. Now I'm going to mix some gray chalk paint with some baking soda to thicken it up and give it more texture. And I think the thicker consistency will help hide imperfections on the pumpkin as well. Now I'm going to paint the entire pumpkin with that textured paint. And then I will paint the other 2 pumpkins as well. The color differs slightly on the smaller ones because I ran out of the Hello Hobby Slate Gray and now Walmart is selling the Waverly brand again. So the smaller ones are painted with Elephant Gray by Waverly. Once I have the pumpkins completely coated in the gray paint and while the paint is still wet, I will sprinkle them with baking soda. Then I will set them aside to dry. When they are completely dry, I'm going to take a dry paintbrush and brush away the excess baking soda. Now to make them more durable outdoors, I'm going to coat them with this Rust-Oleum Clear Durable Top Coat that says it provides indoor and outdoor durability. And now this project is complete. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful to you. If you liked today's video, some easy and completely free ways to help support my channel and to help it grow so that I can keep bringing you more ideas are to subscribe if you haven't already, give me a thumbs up, leave me a quick comment or even just an emoji, and share this video with anyone that you think might enjoy it. I truly appreciate your support and I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!